When you go silent after he rejects you, it sends a message louder than anything you could ever say. It's not angry, it's not emotional, it's not dramatic, it's just absent. And that absence speaks volumes. You might not realize it, but that silence, that complete withdrawal of your energy, your words, your effort, is starting to weigh on him in ways he didn't expect. See, he thought he had the upper hand, maybe not maliciously, but in his mind, he assumed he was in control of the narrative. He was the one making the decision. He said he wasn't ready. He said he needed space. Or maybe he just wasn't feeling it in the same way. And you, being the amazing, open-hearted person you are, respected that. You didn't beg. You didn't push. You didn't throw a fit. You just stopped. You stepped back. You went quiet. And in that moment, everything shifted. Because what he didn't expect, what very few people expect, is for someone to walk away with dignity, to disappear without drama. He thought you'd still be there, subtly orbiting, checking in, liking his stories, replying to his posts, staying in the wings, just in case he ever changed his mind. That's what he thought he'd get. And when he didn't, it confused him. He might not show it. You might not see it on the surface, but underneath, something is gnawing at him. Your silence is unsettling, not because you're trying to hurt him, but because it holds up a mirror. It forces him to confront the reality that you're not waiting around, that you're not holding your breath for him to reconsider, and that maybe, just maybe, he underestimated you. What you've done without realizing it is reclaimed your power. You see, silence after rejection isn't weakness. It's control. It's emotional discipline. It's saying, I know my value, and I don't have time to explain it to someone who couldn't see it when it was right in front of them. That is incredibly powerful. When someone rejects you, they often expect to feel relief. They think they've made a clean break. But what happens when they don't get the closure they thought they would? What happens when, instead of sadness or anger or pleas for understanding, all they get is nothing? They start to wonder. They start to feel the weight of their decision. That clean break they imagined, it becomes a void. And the thing about voids is, they're uncomfortable. They echo. And in that echo, all he can hear is the absence of you. He may start rationalizing it. Maybe she's just playing games. Maybe she's trying to manipulate me. But deep down, he knows. This isn't a game. This is someone who removed herself with grace. This is someone who didn't need to make a scene to be unforgettable. And what's ironic is, in trying to protect himself, in trying to stay in control by ending things or keeping at arm's length, he's now lost the very thing that made him feel safe. Your presence, your care, your interest, it's gone. And now the silence he thought he wanted feels like punishment, even though you're not doing anything to him. You're just not doing anything. This isn't about trying to make him regret it. This isn't about trying to hurt him or win some emotional chess match. It's about respect for yourself. It's about stepping out of a situation where you weren't fully chosen and choosing yourself instead. And that, more than anything, is what starts to kill him inside. Not because you've hurt him, but because you've shown him something he didn't expect. That you're perfectly capable of walking away from someone who doesn't see your worth. And here's the thing. Silence doesn't just leave him wondering about you. It forces him to reflect on himself, on what he missed, on why he didn't fight harder, on whether he was too quick to give up. Your absence becomes the space in which he confronts his own limitations, his own fears, his own emotional immaturity. And that's uncomfortable because it's easier to believe that you're the one who's still hung up. It's easier to assume you're checking his page waiting for a sign. But when there's no sign, when there's just silence, that's when the doubt creeps in. He starts wondering if maybe you were never as attached as he thought. If maybe, instead of him rejecting you, you were just giving him the opportunity to reveal who he really is. Maybe this wasn't a rejection at all. Maybe it was a test. not of whether he wanted you, but of whether he was capable of recognizing something real. That realization stings. And now, the person who walked away quietly becomes the one who's remembered the most. Not because you made a scene, not because you flooded his inbox with messages, but because you let go. And in letting go, you became unforgettable. So if you're wondering whether your silence means anything, it does. It means everything. It's not passive. It's not weak. It's the clearest boundary you can set. It says, I gave you a chance, you passed, and I'm not here to convince you to try again. And while he's sitting in that silence, trying to fill it with distractions, you're already moving forward. You're already healing, evolving, and aligning with someone who won't need silence to realize your worth. Sometimes the loudest thing you'll ever say is nothing at all. You know what's interesting? Most people think rejection is the end of the story. That once someone says, I don't want this, the chapter is closed, the book is shut, and you're supposed to move on with some kind of silent dignity. But here's the twist. The story isn't over when he rejects you. In fact, for him, that's often when it starts to get real. He expected you to chase, let's be honest. That's what many people are conditioned to expect. They assume that the moment they say, this isn't working, the other person will scramble to prove their worth. That they'll reach out, text, call, ask what went wrong, maybe even beg for another chance, or try to subtly stay in the orbit, hoping proximity will reopen the door. That's what he thought would happen, because that's what usually does happen. That's the pattern. But you didn't do that. You didn't text. You didn't call. You didn't send one last long message trying to make sense of it all. You didn't look for loopholes in his decision or stay in touch under the pretense of staying friends. You just stepped back, quietly, completely, without noise, without drama, without a final scene. And that silence, that absence, that unexpected detachment, it didn't just surprise him, it shook him. Because rejection, for him, wasn't meant to be a clean break. It was meant to be a power play. Consciously or not, he thought he'd have the upper hand, that he could reject you but still enjoy knowing you'd be there. Maybe not right away, but eventually, that even if he walked away, your heart would still sit there, waiting, open, available. It's not always malicious. Sometimes it's just ego. It's the human desire to feel wanted even when we're not choosing someone. It's the comfort of knowing you have someone in your corner, still rooting for you, even after you've walked off the field. But when you didn't chase, when you didn't even blink, that comfort was gone. Suddenly, the safety net vanished. And that moment, right there, is when it starts to haunt him. He begins to question everything. Was she ever that into me? Did I misread how much she cared? Is she already over it? Did she have someone else? Or worse, was I not as special as I thought? See, we all crave certainty. And when you reject someone and they walk away silently, you lose the narrative. You lose the sense of control. Now he's the one left with questions. Now he's the one scrolling back through old messages, trying to reread the tone in your texts, trying to figure out where your head's at. Not because he's still in love with you necessarily, but because the uncertainty drives him insane. He had a script in mind, and you didn't follow it. And let me tell you, there's something incredibly powerful about that, because the moment you deviate from the expected script, you reclaim control of the story. You're no longer the rejected one. You're the unreadable one, the mysterious one, the one who doesn't need to beg for validation or prove their value after someone walked away. You became the kind of person who communicates something far stronger than any text message or emotional outburst ever could. You communicated with your silence that you know your worth, that if someone can't see what you bring to the table, you'll simply go without debate, without delay. And that energy, that's rare, that's unforgettable. And don't think for a second, he doesn't feel it, even if he doesn't say anything, even if he doesn't reach out. Even if he pretends everything's fine, trust me, he notices the silence. He checks his phone, expecting to see your name pop up eventually. He waits for that familiar notification, the one that tells him you're still there, orbiting. When it doesn't come, it unsettles him. Not just because he misses you, but because he misses the security of being missed. It's in that quiet aftermath, when you've gone ghost, not to play games, but to truly move forward, that the weight of his decision starts to land. Not because you said something that made him regret it, but because you didn't. And sometimes that's so much more powerful than any words you could have spoken. He expected to be chased. He expected to feel needed, even in rejection. But instead, you gave him a lesson in self-respect. You showed him what it looks like when someone refuses to beg for the bare minimum, when someone knows that love isn't something you audition for, something you're chosen for. And if you're not being chosen, you're not waiting around, you're walking on. And that silence is louder than anything else. It echoes in his mind, in the spaces where your voice used to be, and it forces him to confront what he gave up without you having to remind him. Let him sit with that silence. Let him hear what it sounds like when you remove your energy, your warmth, your care, because that's the sound of you moving on. You know, one of the most powerful things that happens when you choose silence after rejection is that it creates something unexpected, mystery. And mystery, as strange as it sounds, is incredibly compelling. When you stop responding, when you stop chasing, you don't just withdraw yourself physically or emotionally, you actually start to trigger a whole new kind of response in him. Suddenly, he's left in this space of uncertainty, and uncertainty makes people reflect deeply. Think about it for a second. When someone rejects us, there's usually this immediate desire to explain, to clarify, to fix what feels broken. We want answers, closure, a reason why things didn't work out. And often, the person who rejected us is expecting some kind of emotional outburst, or at the very least, some continued attention. Maybe they think you'll be upset, or confused, or desperately trying to win them back. But when you choose silence, when you don't give them that script, you throw them completely off balance. He starts wondering, what is she thinking? Does she really not care? Has she moved on? Or is she hurt in silence? Suddenly, your absence of words becomes the loudest thing in the room. It pulls him into his own head because there's no longer a clear narrative, no explanation, no easy way to move on. He's forced to reflect on his own actions and decisions because you aren't giving him any answers. And that can be incredibly unsettling. Now, this reflection isn't just surface level. It digs deeper than that. When you stay silent, you don't just make him question what you think or feel, you make him question himself. He starts replaying the moments between you, the choices he made, the words he said or didn't say. Was he too harsh? Was he too quick to push away? Did he miss something important? The silence you hold acts like a mirror, reflecting his behavior back to him in a way that forces him to confront the consequences of rejecting you. And here's the key. Mystery triggers curiosity. We're naturally wired to want to solve puzzles, to fill in blanks, especially when it comes to relationships and emotions. When he doesn't know how you feel or what you're thinking, he becomes obsessed with figuring it out. That's why silence is so magnetic. It's the opposite of the predictable script he expected. Instead of you chasing, explaining, or reacting, you're calmly absent. And that absence creates a gap in his mind that he can't ignore. The truth is, when you break that cycle of constant communication after rejection, you shift the entire dynamic. You move from being someone who's available, waiting, and reacting to someone who holds their own space with confidence and self-respect. And that shift makes him reconsider. It makes him wonder if he made a mistake, if he let something valuable go without fully appreciating it. It plants a seed of doubt that's hard to shake because it's not coming from your words, it's coming from the silence. And this isn't about playing games or manipulating feelings. It's about giving yourself permission to step away, to protect your energy, and to show that your worth isn't dependent on his approval. When you choose silence, you're saying, without saying, that you don't need to justify your value or convince anyone to recognize it. And that kind of confidence is magnetic. It also flips the script on what rejection means. Rejection isn't a final judgment on you as a person. It's simply a decision someone else made that doesn't have to define your worth or your future. By going silent, you reclaim your power. You're not allowing rejection to make you desperate or disheartened. Instead, you create a space where he's left to reckon with what he lost while you focus on your growth and healing. And here's something else. Silence gives you time. Time to reflect on what you want, who you are, and where you're going. Instead of getting caught up in a cycle of back and forth emotions, you get to pause, breathe, and build your confidence from within. This is the real transformation, because when he sees you calm and composed, even after rejection, he knows you're not someone who's easily shaken. You become more intriguing, more respected, and ultimately more desirable. So this silence isn't just about waiting for him to come back or regret his decision. It's about you creating a space where you honor yourself enough to let go of needing answers or closure from him.